So I got it all set up. Can I get a thumbs up if you guys figured it out? Yeah, okay, it looks pretty good. Basically, yeah, it's not that much different. It's just now I'm making you hunt for the ID yourself, but it's not that hard. You guys know how to look at HTML. The one thing I want to make sure you do is make sure you use a user.name and a user.lastPost. Because at the end of the day, again, this could be for any user. So let's say I change this to const another user equals name, and I do Aaron Simpson, and I do last post. I hate cats. Cool. And so what I can do is instead of rendering the user data of my user, which I just called user, probably a bad name, I can do another user. And if I save that now, you can see it now shows Aaron's profile with Aaron's name and Aaron's last post. And so you can start to see how our, once we link the database and the server to all this, start to see how the user profiles will work, because we can get anyone's profile data and populate the same page for that. So that means that we don't actually have to code like thousands of profile pages for each person. We just create one template of a profile page and we populate it using data. Back there, help or question? Help up there? Anyone else? All right, does anyone have questions in general about this process right here? What's up? Yeah, sure. So git stash, we can take some time on that. So git stash, what it does is it basically removes all the changes that you do. Okay, so let's say what?
Saves it. Yeah, it saves it. Primarily it saves as weakness.
Yeah. Okay. It's a little, yeah, I don't want to get too far into it, but basically, when you check out a branch, you don't want to overwrite the changes that you made. So, like, let's say you started writing some code, right? We made some template code in there, but when you want to check it out, Git doesn't know what to do with those changes. Okay, so you have to do something with those changes. So one thing that you could do is you can commit it, right? You can push it, and you can't push it because it's not your repository, it's mine. Or you can stash it, which saves it, and you can get it later or do something with it later. Basically, it just reverts your workspace to like the bare bones workspace that I saw that you pulled when you got it. And so that's ready for now Git to basically change it to another branch, basically. Does that make sense? Like, if
you want more information on like what stashing branches does, I would just recommend looking at a tutorial.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't want to spend too much time on this.
Yeah, more office hours.
Office hours is, yeah, super useful. So, let's move on. So, next. So we got this, we filled it out. Oh yeah, remember you want to, didn't even give you the steps, so it's kind of weird. But you want to find the elements, you want to change their inner text, okay? So I did it, before I show you this, I'm going to show you my solution. So I made two profile names, I made it a constant, I got the element, I set their inner text one by one, okay? But you can also write it like this, kind of in one line, because again, this is just kind of how code works. The document.getElement by ID, what that's doing is it's returning the element. So this actually represents the element, and then you can just immediately set its inner text to the username. So you can kind of make code shorter if you want to do it that way. It's a little harder to read. I was just feeling lazy when I made this slide, but I also just want to show you other ways to do things. Okay, so exercise 3. All right, so now just really quick, can I raise your hands? Is everyone mostly set with that exercise? So few hands. I think you guys are getting lazy now, but it's okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do git stash. Go back to your command line. Make sure you're in the folder that you did all your changes in. Git stash, and now git checkout ex3, exercise 3. So again, we're like moving from one parallel version of this repository to another parallel version of this repository.
If you guys have difficulties, just raise your hand.
Hopefully if you got it the first time, it shouldn't be that hard. So I'm going to do the same, git stash, and then git checkout at ex3. Okay, so now on the new branch ex3. And let's go through the changes together. Really quick, who's on the right branch? Or is everyone good? Mostly should be fine. All right. So you can see that now profile.js should have my stuff that I coded already in here. Unfortunately, it probably replaced your name, so if you want, you can change your name back if you like. Has my solution to render user data. But also, in addition, you can see that there's now a new JavaScript file called navbar.js. Okay? So actually, before we even get there, we can look at the HTML, and you can see something that I changed. Okay? So I actually got rid of the navbar variables. Okay? So right now, this is a div that's describing, or it's a nav class actually. It's a fancy class, but it describes navbar. And so if we go to here and refresh it now, you can see that this navbar is actually over here. So if we inspect it and look at it over here, you can see that this is the nav class, right? It's at the very top of our body. It has the navbar brand, which is the Catbook, and then it has stuff in here. So by the way, this is all, again, using Bootstrap. I'm going to take some time really quickly to summarize this again. But remember, Bootstrap makes things happen for you automatically by adding classes, right? So these are classes that are built into Bootstrap. Navbar class basically means this is a navbar. Navbar expand -lg means it's a navbar that expands all the way across the page, and it's large. And navbar dark means that it's primarily a dark colored navbar, which sets the text to a light color. And the background primary means the background color of the navbar is the primary background color, which means it's blue, which is the primary color. So I know that seems like a lot, but again, Bootstrap, the documentation, the way I inserted this was literally go to the documentation, go to components, look at this nice navbar component, and I literally just went to this one right here, and I just kind of copied it. Okay? And you can see that I copied it because like this is literally all the classes are right here. Okay? And see, that's the kind of, again, the way that you would implement something for Bootstrap, and then you modify it for your own purposes. So one thing that you'll notice in a navbar is, you can see this is what the navbar looks like. Navbar, home, features, pricing, disabled. You can actually disable things. But the most important part is in this class called navbar-nav, you have a bunch of links. Elements, remember A stands for link. And they have the class, nav item, and nav link. And basically inside them you put the name of the link. It has a few other things, so we don't have to worry about that. So what we now want to do is we want to, right now, we were hard coding that in our HTML. But you can imagine a situation where your navbar might change, right? Well, let's say you're a guest, or you haven't logged in or something like that, okay? Then you might not have access to all the pages in the website. Let's say you all of a sudden log in. Now you have access to all the pages in the website, okay? So your navbar might change, so it might be a good idea to start now by programmatically adding the elements into your navbar instead of just hard coding them into HTML. So that's what we're going to do now. So yeah, right now we have that div class again, navbar nav, and this is what was here before. I actually just commented it out right here. Really quick, for those of you who don't know, in Sublime at least, you can comment things out by highlighting something and then doing Control/. This is on Windows, I believe it would be Command/ on Mac, which is pretty nice. But yeah, so this is what I commented out. I can uncomment it and do this, and you'll see exactly what it was before, the home and the profile, right? But let's get rid of that. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this using JavaScript. So what I have in this navbar.js, oh yeah, finally at the bottom of the profile.html, I loaded in navbar.js as so that we can do functions there. I know one obvious question is why didn't we just do it in profile.js? But this is a relatively small project, but as your projects get bigger and bigger, you want to start compartmentalizing your code so that it's easier to understand. So the profile.js is made to render your profile, whereas the navbar.js is made to render your navbar. Okay? So here in navbar.js, we have two functions that I've added in for you. So the first function is a new navbar item. It has a comment that tells you exactly what it does. It creates a link element, an A element, with text inside it. And by text, I mean the text that's passed in as an argument to the function. And it links it to the URL, which is the URL that's passed into the function. And you return the element. That's what the function returns. Okay? And then we have a function called render navbar, which takes in a user. We're not actually going to do anything with the user for now, but it's going to take in a user. And we're basically going to find the navbar div. Okay, again, that's the nav item container from here. That's the ID, and that's where we want to enter things. And we're going to use this function that I talked about earlier called append child. We're going to append these navbar items one by one. Okay? Does that make sense? So it kind of makes sense why we have a function called new navbar. Because if we're making many, many navbar items, we normally would have to, like, inside here create a bunch of code to create each item, and we do it every single time we add another navbar item. We would be doing that over and over again. But instead, if we just create a function and we just call it here, and we just append that child. That makes sense. Okay, so what your task now is, so we're going to now fill in new navbar. So just again, quick steps. You need to create a linked element. Okay, so remember, how do you create elements using the document in JavaScript? You link it to the given URL. There's already a URL that's passed in, but maybe you want to look up, this is also a good time to start Googling things, how do you use JavaScript to maybe affect the link of an element, right? Hint, remember, it's called href. That's what you do in a link. And then you want to put the text inside the element, which we've already done multiple times, so you should know exactly how to do that. And I want you to return the element, because that element will then, once it's being returned, be appended by the code that we've already put in for you. And also, again, you can look at the HTML in profile.html to see the structure of the navbar item. You probably also want to add some classes to that element. As you will see, because of how Bootstrap works, you need some classes on those links. Go ahead, check out the HTML, check out the classes that you want to put on those elements. So go ahead and give it a try now. This one's a little tougher. Definitely step it up. Definitely ask out for help. TAs, be ready to help. Good luck. Go. Now, there's questions, you need help, feel free to raise your hand. I'd say take it step by step. First, create the element. That's the easiest part. Okay, and once you've created an element, you want to add things to it. So maybe the easiest thing is putting the text inside. You know how to do that, so go ahead and do that. Again, for the linking to the URL, you might want to do a quick Google search. It suggests maybe saying JavaScript, edit, HTML, href. Now, of course, at the end, you just want to return the element. Right, while you guys work, I'm going to quickly type up my solution. Feel free to look up if you don't understand. Whether you're watching along, so I just found the class in here. I just want to add these. item and link. You can also obviously find that on the Bootstrap documentation. So I got it all working. We have now back here, we have the profile and the home set up here. And so our navbar is now complete. And you can see that we added that completely after we rendered the page just by loading the HTML. And this is the solution for anyone who's still working with it. Does everyone understand what happened here? Basically, we're just getting into more layers of how to edit, create, modify elements of HTML on the page. Any questions? Everyone good? Once you see it, it's not that complicated. So remember that this is just straight up Bootstrap classes. So it's not like you need to understand necessarily what these do. I'm just adding them in so that the links look correct. Back to how it comes it looks really weird, and I think it's mostly because the text color is wrong. Okay. What's up?
In general, when you have a JSON DOM object, can you access attributes the way you did using the documentation?
What was that?
When you have like a DOM object, like a navbar,
Yeah.
can you just access its attributes using documentation the way you did?
Yes. Sorry, yeah, I should explain this, but yeah, so in general, some attributes are like already available using the documentation. In general, if you want to update attributes on a DOM object like this, we can do a quick Google search. I believe it's called update attribute. JavaScript element update DOM element attribute. Yeah, so there's a get attribute and set attribute. There it is. So get attribute will just like get you the attribute with the attribute name. Of course, set attribute will one's in W3, one's in MDM. Great. The other one will basically this is complicated. That gets the element, and then you set attribute the class. You can set it to demo class, right? And so that's the way you can do any single attribute. You can even create your own attributes on an element in that way. Okay, so has everyone figured out the navbar item stuff? I have the code up here if you haven't figured it out. Give a quick raise of hand if you understand what's going on. If you have any questions, again, please just let me know. Thumbs up if you figured it out. Was that a raise of hand or question? What's up? The what? Oh, right here? So yeah, so basically, if you recall, in new navbar item, we're passing in the text that we want to be in the link, and we have the URL, basically what we want the navbar link to do, right, where we want to take it. And so far, well, we don't want it to go anywhere, because this navbar is not actually doing it. We're just making it, okay? So once we have some structure and maybe we want to do something with it, we can start actually giving it links. But if you actually look very carefully, when you load the page, it's just, it has this link, and when you click it, this pound sign comes here. It's like very small. But basically, yeah, that's all it's doing. And pound is just an easy way to basically make a button or a link do nothing. But in fact, what we can do is we can really quickly, unless we know what the profile is, where we can do profile.html, right? And so if we now go here and click profile, it just refreshes the page, right? And we just didn't do it here because we don't have a home page. Yes, it's like it's a pretty typical. Cool. So, alright, so if everyone's good, we're gonna move on to the next exercise, alright? So we've stepped it up for this one, and this next one we're really gonna step it up, okay? It's gonna be fun. So, okay. So again, here is that code, and we're just setting the class name, the inner HTML.href. Alright, exercise 4, alright? So, exactly what you were talking about. We have a nav bar, we don't have another page. What's the point? We need like a home page or something. And if you saw in our original application, that was our news feed, right? So we're going to do the same thing once again. Go ahead, go to your command line, get into that folder, git stash, git checkout ex4, okay? And this is a big jump, so I'll kind of explain what's the difference going on here. I'll do it myself. Git stash. Git checkout ex4. Alright. Okay. So. Alright. So what's changed? Index. So, raise your hand when you have the code. Yeah, this is the third time doing it, so hopefully it should be easy for all of you all today. Yeah, so really quick, what do we do? Well, we added a profile page. So if we load the website, we added a home page. We can actually now click on home and it'll take us to the home page, and profile will take us to the profile. Right? Isn't that nice? So if you check out exactly what this did, is all I did is I actually just added the links, just like I said. We have profile.html for profile, and I added a new file called index.html in the root of the folder, and I linked to that. So actually, why don't we just go ahead and take a quick look at index.html. Now I know this looks like I just added a lot of code to your folder, but it's not that complicated, because all we're doing here, okay, remember, HTML document is a head and a body. Head just has the title of the newsfeed, the bootstrap link, and the link to the style sheet. Body, well, half of it is like the nav bar right here. So that's just there itself. And then I just have two things for it. I have the container, in which case I have the input group. So this is, again, more bootstrap stuff. I made a nice input group so you can see it actually looks really nice. This is all built in bootstrap. You can see I have like this nice enter text bar with this button attached to the right side of it. These small things that you can do that make your web page look just that much nicer. It's built into Bootstrap. I'll actually go over this example after this lecture, but just take it for now and I'll explain it in a bit. So that's the text input and the button. And then there's this div that I've added. It's a row, it has this ID called stories, and I said stories are inserted here. So it's empty, and as you can guess, we're going to be starting to programmatically enter some stories here in a second. Okay? But that's there, and of course, what's interesting now is, I mentioned earlier, we should compartmentalize our code. And why would we do that? Well, it's a perfect example. Because in this page, we still have a nav bar, right? We don't have the same profile plus stuff, but we still have a nav bar. So we want to use the same logic to render this nav bar as we do when we have profile.html. So what we can do is, you can see I'm actually loading the same exact navbar.js script because it does the same exact thing, right? It will just render the navbar as we see fit, and then below that I have index.js. So let's look at index.js. All it's doing right now, it just has a user, right? It's not doing very much. Same idea, has a user, and it renders the navbar. One quick thing here, because this is a very common beginner mistake that I see a lot. When you go to index.html, you'll see that I loaded navbar.js before index.js. And this order really matters. Because if you see, index.js is calling render navbar. Okay? And render navbar is a file in navbar.js. Okay? In fact, profile.js also does this. It calls render navbar, and render navbar is also, again, a file, a function in navbar.js. So why this is important is basically we want to compartmentalize the navbar function, but you basically what that means is you have to load it before you ever call it, because the order does matter in the HTML. So in this case, if I switch these around, see if I move that one line below, and then go home, you can see that the navbar is gone. Navbar is gone. And if I look at the console, it says uncaught reference error, render navbar is empty. And that's because you look at index.js 6, index.js is trying to call render navbar, and it hasn't been defined because it hasn't been loaded yet. So script orders are actually really important. So keep that in mind. Don't just kind of throw scripts in any order. You want to start thinking about what you're loading when. Okay? So now that we have that, okay? So what are we trying to do here? We can refresh this and now the navbar is back. Cool. What are we trying to do on this page? Well, this is our newsfeed, right? So we want to be able to post statuses. We want to post some stories about ourselves, about our cats, our favorite times with our feline partners. You know, it's doing great. But like, right now, if we can type something in here, right, and we click post, it does nothing. This is kind of lame, right? What does that do? So that's what JavaScript is for, right? It can start doing things for you. So let's go and. So, this is the last exercise. It's a little harder, but I'm sure you guys can get through it. Basically, you're going to add an event listener. Okay? Remember we showed a little bit of example of that. You're going to add an event listener that watches the new status button. Right? The new status BTN is the ID of that button that I have there. And you want to watch when it is clicked. Okay? When it is, we want to create a new div that's going to be added underneath the stories div. Okay? Now don't worry, I'll explain this with the code as well. That div should contain the text, whatever text is in the new status text box. Okay? And then, if you can, also clear that text box after you're done. So, really quick, what I mean here is you're going to do this in index.js, but we want to add an event listener to a button here. The button is going to be in index.html. This button right here, which has the new status button called post. It looks like this button right here. And what it's going to do is when we click post, we want the text in this input bar. And you can see the input bar is right here. It has the ID new status text. We want to get that text. We want to create a new div element. And we want to append that div element to here, the stories div. Okay? So we're kind of putting everything together right now. Go ahead, try it, give it your hand, and I'll be shouting out a few hands every now and then. Go for it. Oh, it's really quiet. You guys are serious now, giving you a challenge. Alright, so I'm going to start by finding the button. Let's do that. It shouldn't be that hard. That's like the first step. So we're going to index.js, just add down here. Const, say post button equals document find, get element by ID. And what do we call it? We called it new status BTN. easy enough. We got that all set. That part should have been relatively easy. So I think the hardest part is definitely remembering the syntax for the adding the event listener. So I'll just review that really quick. Is post button dot add event listener. Okay. And remember we passed two things to that: a click, because we care when it's clicked, and we of course pass a function. Okay. And inside this function, we're going to do the rest of the stuff. So I'll leave that part to you guys, but that's basically the syntax that you might have forgotten or might be checking you out. Raise your hand if you figured it out. Now you can click, you can post things, and like it posts things. One person. Anyone else?
You're back to the other side.
Yeah, sorry. I just learned something interesting. So while you guys are working, just a really quick important thing is that Sublime has some good interfaces for letting you navigate through folders. Like I hear that some people are just opening files over and over again, but if you notice that I have this entire folder hierarchy right here. So what we can do is instead of opening file, you can open a folder, and what I'd say is open your repository that you cloned, so Catbook Workshop 0. You select the folder and just open it twice, but you can see inside the folder now, you can see all your files, you can open them one by one, you can have them in tabs side by side. It's super useful. Yeah, so that way you don't have to always navigate all things. So again, remember, all you're doing is once you have the event listener, you're going to create a new element. That's the first thing you always have to do, because that's what you're trying to do. When you click the button, you want to create a new store. So you create a new element. It's a div. And you want to, of course, set the text of that div to something. We have to get that text first. So think about how you would get that text. Believe me,